They say sometimes the smallest gestures can change a life forever. But no one tells you how often those life-changing moments begin not with grand speeches or dramatic music, but with silence, hunger, and a stranger's choice to stop walking. It was another rain-slick evening in Manhattan. The kind where umbrellas bloom like dark flowers on the sidewalks and headlights carve gold streaks into wet pavement. For most people, it was just a Tuesday. For Alex Hayes, CEO of Hayes Corporation, it was the end of yet another ruthless boardroom marathon. Deals closed. Empires maintained. But none of it mattered in that instant when he caught a glimpse of a girl curled beneath a closed cafe awning. Serena Monroe didn't look like someone you'd notice. That was part of the tragedy. Threadbare coat, dirty shoes, her hair knotted with city dust. She was invisible, and yet he saw her. Now this is where the story begins to twist. Not just because a wealthy man gave a stranger food, but because he broke his own rule to do it. You see, Alex wasn't charitable. He believed in the grind, in merit, in cold logic. So why did he stop? Was it guilt? A flicker of memory? Or did something in Serena's still defiant eyes remind him of the part of himself he'd locked away? He handed her the food himself. Not through an assistant. Not tossed at a distance. With his own hands. And in that one quiet act, the unspoken message was louder than words. You're not invisible. She ate cautiously, almost as if she thought this kindness came with strings. But hunger has a way of loosening suspicion. And for the first time in days, Serena tasted warmth, not just in the food, but in the presence of someone who simply stayed. But just as quickly, he left. That's the thing about people like Alex. They swoop in like ghosts, change something, then vanish. He probably told himself he'd never see her again. That it was just a passing act of decency. But New York has a funny way of stitching fates together. Later that week, Alex found himself walking toward his car after another long night at work. It was late. The city had quieted into its usual hum of sirens and echoes. That's when he heard a sharp cry from a nearby alley. He could have kept walking. Most people would. But something rooted him to the spot. Turning the corner, he saw her. Serena, surrounded by 3 men, trapped against a wall, eyes wide but unyielding. There's a specific kind of fear you see in someone who survived too much. It doesn't look like panic. It looks like resolve. Alex didn't hesitate. His voice cut through the dark like steel. Let her go. And just like that, the dynamic shifted. 3 street-hardened men looked up to find themselves face to face with a man who exuded calm power, the kind you don't argue with. They backed off, muttering curses as they disappeared into the shadows. Serena's breathing slowed. She stared at him, stunned. Why? Why did you help me again? She asked. And again he didn't give her the usual savior narrative. Just a simple answer. I don't like seeing people get pushed around. And maybe that's the first clue. The first thread of who he used to be. You see, people like Alex don't become ruthless out of nowhere. Often they become hard because the world taught them softness was dangerous. Maybe helping Serena wasn't about her. It was about salvaging a part of himself. Here's where it all shifts. Alex makes her an offer work at his company. Not as some fantasy Cinderella scenario, not as his assistant, but as janitorial staff. Honest work, humble, but stable. This is where the story earns its weight. He didn't promise her a new life. He handed her a broom and a paycheck, and in a world of fake handouts and empty promises that meant more than a mansion ever could. Serena accepted not because she trusted him, but because hunger teaches humility. What followed were the first uneasy steps into a world she didn't belong to. Glass walls, marble floors, perfect suits. She was a ghost among gods. Employees stared, judged, whispered. And then came Victoria. Every story needs an antagonist, and sometimes they're not villains. They're just people trying to protect what they think they've earned. Victoria Alex's longtime assistant saw Serena as a threat. She made that clear. Cold smiles. Sharp words. You don't belong here. And maybe Victoria wasn't entirely wrong. Serena didn't belong. But neither did Alex if you looked closely. Not the real him. What makes this story human is what happens next. Not the drama, not the tension, but the quiet scenes. Serena scrubbing floors. Alex watching her from the corner of a hallway. No words. Just recognition. In one scene, Alex asks how her first day went. She shrugs off the harassment, says she can handle it. And when he offers to step in, she laughs. Why do you care? He doesn't answer, not with words, because he doesn't know yet himself. This is where many viewers feel a tug in their own lives. How often do we witness someone quietly struggling and do nothing? Or worse, justify our indifference by convincing ourselves they deserve it. Alex broke that pattern, not because he was noble, but because he remembered. One night, Serena catches him in the conference room, glass of whiskey in hand, staring into the skyline. This is one of those rare glimpses into power when it's stripped of performance. She asks if he's okay. No one ever asks a powerful that. He smiles. Not because he's fine, but because the question itself was unexpected. She asks him finally why her. His answer is a whisper. Because when I saw you, I realized no one would have helped me either. That line is more than just a plot twist. It's a mirror. Because behind every ruthless executive, every hardened adult, there's a kid who once needed help and didn't get it. Maybe Serena reminded Alex of a version of himself he had buried beneath wealth and steel. And maybe that's what made her dangerous not to him, but to the walls he built. As Serena settled into her new role, she tried to stay invisible. It was easier that way. She didn't want to disrupt the balance of this pristine world, didn't want to be noticed, not again. But with Alex, invisibility was never an option. Their paths kept crossing. Not in the obvious ways, but in stolen moments. A glance in the hallway. A nod across the lobby. One afternoon, Serena was reading a book in the lounge when Alex passed by. He stopped, curious. You like to read? He asked, surprised. She looked up. Books were the only thing I had growing up. That moment landed with quiet weight. It wasn't just about reading. It was about survival. About how people find meaning in the smallest things when the rest of the world gives them nothing. Alex sat across from her, genuinely intrigued. Not as a CEO, not as a man with power, but as someone who suddenly wanted to know more about this girl with the fire in her eyes and storms in her past. This is where the emotional core of the story deepens. Because behind the elegance of this building, behind the roles they each played, something raw and real had begun to stir. Neither could name it, neither dared to, but it was there. And still, reality crept in. Serena never forgot she didn't belong. Not really. The stares, the whispers, Victoria's icy reminders that this wasn't her world. One night, Serena stood in the pouring rain outside the office, unsure whether to wait out the storm or make the long walk home. That's when a sleek black car pulled up. The window rolled down. Get in, Alex said. She hesitated. This wasn't part of the job. This wasn't part of anything she understood. But something in his voice, firm yet gentle, made her open the door. Inside, silence fell. Rain tapped against the glass, as if filling the space with unsaid words. She tried to sound casual. Were you just passing by? He didn't look at her, just murmured, You don't have to walk through storms anymore. It wasn't about the rain. That sentence stayed with her longer than she could explain. Alex didn't owe her anything, yet here he was showing up. Not to fix her, not to rescue her, just to be there. That night, she received an invitation that shook her a party, a formal one, hosted by people who moved money, shaped markets, and wielded status like a weapon. Alex said he needed someone he could trust. She didn't understand. She didn't belong in heels and a silk dress. But when she stepped into the ballroom and saw him waiting, hand extended, eyes steady, she took a breath and let him lead her in. The room froze. Stares pierced her from all angles. But Alex didn't flinch. He introduced her without apology, without hesitation. Not as someone he saved, but as someone who mattered. In that moment, she wasn't a background figure. She was center stage. Victoria, of course, seethed. Later that evening, Alex confessed something on the balcony. He hated these parties. It's just a power game, he said. She asked why he still attended. His answer was simple, because it's a price he pays to stay where he is. For the first time, she saw him not as untouchable, but as burdened. It's a feeling many of us know. That loneliness at the top. The silent pressure to keep everything held together. You don't have to do everything alone, she told him. He didn't reply, not in words. Instead, he reached up and gently brushed her cheek. Just once. A single gesture filled with every emotion they hadn't spoken. But the moment was broken. Victoria appeared. Alex, I need to talk to you. He left, and Serena was left alone again this time, in a dress that wasn't hers, in a world that kept reminding her she didn't belong. And yet, she stayed. That's when she heard it. Voices from a secluded hallway. Victoria. Her words cruel, biting. What do you think you're doing? She used to be homeless. What do you think the board will say when they find out Serena froze? She hadn't hidden her past, but she never thought it would be weaponized. Then she heard Alex respond, I don't care who she was. She's Serena, and that's all that matters to me. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't a dramatic proposal. It was something far more important, acceptance. Still, Victoria wasn't finished. She sneered, is she even ready for this world? Serena didn't wait to be defended. She stepped forward, calm and steady. I can decide that for myself. It wasn't just about proving something to Victoria. It was about reclaiming her own narrative. For once, she wasn't being spoken about. She was speaking. Alex turned to her. You heard all of that? She nodded. Do you really not care about my past? He smiled not with his lips, but with his eyes. No, I care about you. And that right there is the point of the story. In a world that measures worth in titles and background checks, here was someone saying you're not your past. You're not your mistakes. You're not your lowest moment. You're who you choose to become. Serena's story isn't about a homeless girl being rescued by a CEO. It's about two people who saw themselves in each other's brokenness and chose to build something new. And if we're honest, this story reflects something many of us long for. Not the mansion or the fairy tale, but the recognition. The chance to be seen beyond what the world has labeled us. There's a real-life parallel in the story of Liz Murray, once a homeless teenager in New York, eating out of dumpsters who later earned a scholarship to Harvard. Her journey wasn't about luck or charity. It was about grit, and someone believing in her when the world didn't. The difference between success and survival isn't always talent. It's often just one person who says, I see you. So the next time you pass someone on the margins, someone overlooked, underestimated, remember Serena. Remember that sometimes all it takes to change a life is a burger, a job, and a little faith. And if you ever find yourself wondering if you deserve a second chance, you do. We all do. Please share these stories with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more meaningful stories.